Okay, we're back. We're live. It's ThinkTech, and it's Friday at noon, mostly at noon. And it's Friday at noon in Europe. Well, midnight in Europe, because they're exactly 12 hours difference. And here we are on ThinkTech Global. We're talking about the upshot of the elections in India with Guari Khandekar, who is in Brussels right now. And we join her by Skype audio. Hi, Guari.
Hi, Jay. Thanks for having me. It's a real pleasure to be back on your show.
Well, we'll do it again and again because you have so much information and thought that, we'd like to tap into that. And also, you're a nice person, too.
Oh, you're so kind. You're too kind.
Anyway, so it's midnight in Brussels. Thank you very much for staying up late. I really appreciate that. And actually, it's easier to do a 12-hour difference like this than if you were, for example, in Delhi.
Yes, that day it was 5 a.m., I think, the last time. So sorry for not being on the video, but I've been in my pajamas for the last two times. So
well, you're completely forgiven. Anyway, so tell us about the trip to Delhi. You went to Delhi in order to cover the elections and see what was going on. That was about a month ago, I think. The elections themselves took 6 weeks or more. So tell us about the trip you had to Delhi and what you did there and what you covered.
Sure. So the main reason why I went to Delhi, was because we were organizing a major event there, which is the EU. The EU is the European Union and India Forum on Multilateralism. So this forum is held annually, and it's a dialogue between India's official think tank, the ICWA, European official think tank, it's the EUISS, and FRIDE, which is my think tank. And here we talk with India about multilateral issues and foreign policy, basically. Now, what was interesting is that this event was organized right in the middle of the Indian elections, and these elections have been really historic. Not only is it an unprecedented number of voters that were eligible, which is more than 800 million voters, 815 million voters, if I may correct myself, of which around 100 million voters who would vote for the first time. This was the total electorate. So it was a massive movement of people. Around a million electronic voting systems, and 989 counting centers all over India. Turned out that almost about 500 million people turned up. So voter turnout was a little less, but nonetheless, it's almost double the population of the U.S. It was very interesting to see the political movement. It's very charged. Now, in Delhi, you can't really see a lot because Delhi, nonetheless, is an urban capital, and most of the action takes place, if I may say, in the rural areas. But every TV channel, every news channel was really very active in covering the elections, covering the rallies. And what was even more intriguing was Narendra Modi, who was the BJP prime ministerial candidate and is now the prime minister of India. He did a number of rallies via hologram simultaneously.
Did you say by hologram?
Yes, holograms. I've never heard of it before, or any politician doing that before. But India is such a vast country, and he did it via hologram in a number of constituencies, in a number of villages, and for an Indian population, it was just out of this world to really to witness this use of technology, even so.
Oh, that's remarkable. So I take it you sort of immersed yourself in the day-to-day. you watched the television, you ran around to the rallies, you sort of absorbed, the climate of the elections. You read all the newspapers, and you learned and wrote about what was happening. True?
Yes, true. I've met a number of politicians as well. Some also outgoing ministers who I've known for some time now, and it was very interesting to see either their frustration if they were from the Congress party, or their optimism if they were from the BJP party. The BJP is the Bharatiya Janata Party, which is the ruling party now in India, and the Congress party, which is led by the Gandhi family, which has nothing to do with Mahatma Gandhi, but is the dynasty of Nehru, Jawaharlal Nehru. And it's something like the Kennedys, they're the Kennedys of India. And they have led this party since Indian independence in 1947. What was the main element of this election was that the vast majority of the Indian population was voting for governance, and not based on caste, religious, class issues, but really for more governance, for better governance and less corruption. So this was, I think, the biggest takeaway from this election, is how the political paradigm has changed in India so drastically.
Oh, that's great. So in the past, it was based on things other than governance, on caste, for example, and cultural issues. This time, it's based on what? Leaders, their credentials, their platforms, their issues. Yeah.
Yes. It was mainly party-based this time, if I can say that. The reason being that one party was seen as being able to deliver. Now, the Congress party, which was in power for the last 10 years, calls itself secular. But the number of corruption scandals that have emerged during their tenure, the decade-long tenure, has been really something that is remarkable. I mean, for a country that has really reluctantly grown accustomed to corruption, the scale of these multi-billion-dollar corruption scandals, which involved politicians, and even linking the Prime Minister's own office and Sonia Gandhi's kin, it has been something unacceptable. And the BJP party, in contrast, although they've been portrayed as Hindu nationalists, have promised better governance, or an end to the Congress party at least. So everybody just wanted another party, but which could deliver. So it didn't matter if they were called Hindu nationalists, or if they were secular or not. Most Indians just wanted better opportunities. And also what happened during the Congress tenure was that India's growth declined drastically. So from almost 10% in 2009, I think, to less than 5% now. And anything less than 5% growth in India feels like a recession. And that coupled with 10% inflation.
Oh, okay.
So people really have been frustrated. Yeah.
Okay, so this is new. That's why it was such an important election. But I want to go back for a moment and talk about the technology just for a moment before we take our break. So the voting was all, what, on the computer, or were there voting places where you would find a computer-like voting machine? How did that work?
It's an electronic ballot. Sadly, I could not vote myself because the voting has been done by state and by constituency. So the day I arrived in India, 2 days ago, voting had taken place in my hometown where I have been registered. So unfortunately, I couldn't vote. But it's a electronic voting system. all across India. So this is something really remarkable. Even here, sometimes in Europe, you have the traditional voting ballots. But what was also really remarkable is that it was organized so that nobody in India had to walk more than 2 kilometers to reach a place of voting. And in some places in remote areas of India, the election commission people walked each day 47 kilometers almost, so that 18 people in this constituency could vote. So we do take elections very seriously.
So what percentage then of the total voting population voted?
Around 66%, I think.
Well, that's better than Hawaii, probably better than the U.S. average, actually. So I couldn't vote on my computer at home, though. I couldn't vote on the internet. I would have to go physically to a ballot place where there would be an electronic voting machine. Yeah.
Yes, the same in India. I mean, I don't think you can vote, and you can't vote from abroad either.
So you know that absentee ballots in Hawaii are becoming ubiquitous, and in fact, last time around it was like 40% of the voters voted by absentee ballot, which means they vote early before the official election day, which means that the candidates have to address them early before they make their decision. It's really interesting how that changes, the whole time frame going into election day. When we come back, I'd like to talk about how it worked on a national level to have an election that lasted for more than 6 weeks. Usually elections are one day. So I'd like to just explore with you why do that and how was it done. This is ThinkTech Global. We're talking about the upshot of the elections in India with Guari Khandekar, and she is with a think tank. What is the name of your think tank in Brussels again?
FRIDE. FRIDE, it's a Spanish acronym.
Okay, FRIDE in Brussels, where she joins us by Skype. We'll be right back after this break.
I'm Hong Jiang, host for Asia in Review on Tuesdays.
And I'm David Day, host for Asian Review on Thursdays. Both of us broadcast our respective shows at 4 p.m.
And my topics tend to deal with questions related to environment, culture, history, and sometimes human rights.
And my shows tend to be on international business, foreign policy, geopolitics, and national security. And you can watch our shows live on the ThinkTech website at thinktechhawaii.com.
And you can also watch us on YouTube or Olalo.
So come join us on Thursdays at 4 p.m. I'm David Day.
And on Tuesdays at 4 p.m., I'm Hong Jiang.
Aloha.
Okay, we're back. We're live with Guari Khandekar, who joins us by Skype audio from Brussels. She is an official with FRIDE, which is a think tank in Brussels, and FRIDE was covering the Indian elections, and Guari went to Delhi in order to do that a few weeks ago. And so we're talking about the upshot of those elections today. And one of the questions I wanted to ask is, how do you do an election over 6 weeks? Because it took 6 weeks or more to do the elections in India. Why did it take that long? If you have this high-tech election system, why wouldn't it just take one day? Can you answer that, Guari?
Yes, I can. Actually, how can you not do an election in a month in India? Because we have 1.2 billion population. Our country is the 7th largest in the world. And we have a very small election commission, so to organize these elections takes a long time. And in terms of manpower, and for the election commission, which is an independent body, to ensure that these elections have taken place in a very transparent manner, they need to move about themselves. So I think it's impossible to hold elections in one day across the number of constituencies that are, and to have around to expect 815 million people to vote. So that is the population of Europe and the US combined, actually.
That's huge. So I guess the other thing about that is that they were going around to make sure that everything was kosher. I just wonder if there were any challenges, if there were any hanging chads, as it were, if there were any issues about whether the electronic system worked or didn't work, such as we had in the second Bush election. And from time to time, in various places in the U.S., we have lawsuits and challenges to the election.
Yes.
Did that happen in India for this election?
Yes, I mean, even in the world superpower, these issues take place. Yes, I mean, in the US, like you mentioned, but and it is true that in India, given our economic challenges, logistic challenges, there were some issues that took place. Now, at times, some of these election ballots that I read in the newspaper automatically voted Congress party, and other times. Some people registered did not figure on a list to vote.
Mm-hmm.
So even though they were registered in some constituencies, when they went to vote, their names didn't figure on a list. So these were issues that took place. But overall, it was a very tiny percentage, a fraction of a percentage. And most of the elections took place in a very fair and consistent manner.
Oh, good. Then I wanted to get into the issue of television. You mentioned that Mr. Modi appeared by a hologram. How did he do
Yes.
that? Was that on television or some other device? And how much of this election was governed by television appearances versus personal appearances? How important is television appearances, and television ads, in determining the outcome? We know how important it is in the United States. We know that if you buy a lot of ads, you get to win the election. Is the same process in place in India?
So first about the holograms. These holograms were used for rallies in different villages. So since Modi was campaigning quite vigorously, he couldn't be in two villages at the same time, and that's a problem I think a number of us face.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So what he did was use holograms, and the holograms were I don't know, they were put out, if you use that word, on the stage in various cities at the same time with the registered speech. So the people there got to see his 3D or 4D image with a speech that was put on the loudspeaker. The media, yes, what's unknown mainly abroad is that India has a very vibrant media, and it's a very open and free journalistic society. So you have freedom of speech.
Does that mean that the press? Does that mean, like in some newspapers in Britain, for example, they just do yellow journalism and try to, reveal raw meat kinds of stories? Is that what happens in the free press in India, or is it different than that?
Oh yes, I mean we have all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So our media even conducts sting operations, taking cameras, hiding cameras covertly, trying to even bribe politicians. And when the politicians accept these bribes, they say, "Oh well, this is what happened." And really, I was asked recently at a conference that I was invited to speak at. What about the Congress party as opposition? Because just a footnote is that the Congress party won't get the leader of opposition position because they don't even have 1/10 of the total seats in the Indian Parliament. And what I answered was that we have a very active media, and the media is our biggest check and balance. So
Yeah.
it's a very strong opposition to the government.
Well,
There's no need. Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, so no, just to say that it's a very active media, and we have all sorts of uh, of things that are done by the media, including sting operations.
That's really wonderful. So, I mean, if you run for office then in India, if there's anything that you want to hide, it's hard to hide that. If there's anything
They will dig up
embarrassing,
your
it'll come
past.
out.
They will dig up all the skeletons in your closet, but I have to say we're quite good at hosting debates. We do actually take after the CNN a bit, with the 8 speakers and the chaos, but it's needed, and they cover everything very well, especially the elections. Not only do our top reporters, have a very wide coverage, but they follow the leaders. Most of the times they follow the leaders as well during the day. So
I'm wondering also about whether I take it there were thousands of people, thousands of candidates for thousands of offices all around the country. It wasn't just Mr. Modi for prime minister, and so potentially lots of issues beyond just party affiliation. And I'm wondering, is that true? Were there a lot of issues? What kind of issues were at play? And my second part of that question is, were the people the electorate, are they generally speaking, are they informed on those issues? Or is it, or are they sort of responding to more emotional appeals when they're not informed?
the people, you mean?
Yes, both sides.
Yes.
I mean, do we have a lot of legitimate political issues going on? Do the candidates argue those issues? Was it a
Sure.
rational discussion, a platform? And were the people informed about those political issues?
Sure. So let me just begin by saying that we have around 1,616 national and regional parties that would have competed, and I think around 1,400 registered. So 1,400 parties, political parties. That doesn't even include all the independent independent candidates.
Whoa.
So that's a large number. It's not only the Democrats and the Republicans. It's a very large selection. And yes, the people were informed. Now, the main issue, I would say, was corruption. And in 2011, there was an anti-corruption movement started by an activist called Anna Hazare in India, and it was called India Against Corruption Movement. And it got a lot of traction amongst people, amongst the society, and especially amongst the youth. Now, the number of houses that own TVs in India as well is quite significant. I don't have the exact figure with me, but I think at least a fourth of every household has a TV, and people do invite their neighbors along. Everybody is quite informed in that sense. So people were aware. They were aware of what's happening. They're aware of the main issues, and these issues also affect their lives in the sense of jobs, economic growth, inflation, even food price inflation. So, like it or not, they did become aware. And as a result, they voted for a party not for dynastic issues, not for communal or caste issues, but for a party that can deliver more governance and more distribution of public goods. And Modi's own motto for the election was more governance, less government. And it clicked with the people. So
that's great. That's a great line.
Yeah. Well, he had another cheeky comment, which is good days are here to come.
I like that too.
Yeah.
That's great. It's very creative.
Yes, and there's another trend is that picked up was social media. Because Narendra Modi himself was very, very active on social media. And I read somewhere that Twitter wanted to basically replicate the active use of Twitter that happened for the Indian elections to other elections abroad. So it was quite unprecedented, actually, the number of times Twitter was used in India for the elections itself.
How ubiquitous are computers in India these days that, or I guess I should add to that, smartphones, so that people could, engage with Twitter and Facebook and the like? Is everybody have access?
Most of them, yes. Smartphones are very prevalent in India, I would say so. Definitely. The thing is, we're skipping a generation of phones, So from the basic Nokia, we've not gone to the higher end phone, but we've gone directly to the smartphones, and smartphones have become quite cheap. And a growing middle class in India also loves to change their smartphones to get the latest one. And I know because we have around 3 smartphones in my hometown, in my mom's house, with 2 adults there. So yes, the rural population, it's much challenging because India is a country of inequalities.
Yes, yes. Well, we hear about the areas in India with the tech colleges and training and all of the call centers and the like, and we think that, and it was a middle class life there, with your home, your car, your computer, whatever it is, and we tend to think that is the pervasive model in India, but that's not really true. There are areas which have escaped that kind of escaped that kind of development, and so I think a part of this is how much of India is at the front end in terms of having access to computers, having access to smartphones, being in the middle class economic strata.
Well, you could say a third of India it can be counted as middle class. Now, middle class also is not the same definition as you would have in the US, right? Around 400 million people in India don't have access to electricity even yet today.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a staggering figure. Now, middle class in India, you would say, would have around just let me get $132 average wage a month. So this is middle class, but yes, it's true because we started out as a quite poor country following colonialism, and to get the policies to touch the vast and growing population across a rural landscape has been our biggest challenge. And I'm not saying that we've not done a good job. We lift millions of people out of poverty each year, but it is challenging. There are huge differences, and one of the main challenges the middle income trap that India would face.
Well, so why did Mr. Modi win? I mean, what was it about his appeal, his positions, or the way he conducted his campaign that made him so popular and made him the prime minister?
Sure, this is. I think this has become my favorite question now. And the line that I wrote in one of my papers is that Modi's vision of an Indian dream appealed to aspirational Indians. Now, Modi is seen as a development man. He was the chief minister of an Indian state, which is called Gujarat, for around a decade. And he really developed the state very, very well. Gujarat had the lowest unemployment rate compared to the rest of India. Its growth was much higher, around 15%. There were a number of schools that were started, and he did manage to get a surplus for the state from a deficit. Now, what the Congress Party did over the last 10 years is that they did have their pro-poor policies, but people didn't want to basically remain at the fringes of poverty. So even though they had the free food, that is the food security program, which gave out free food, or the Manrega program, which granted 100 days of employment, they were seen as more handouts, whereas most of the Indian population, especially in the rural sector, want jobs for their children, want better educational opportunities, so that they, instead of receiving handouts, can really aim for a better life. And this is what Modi spoke about. He wants to develop India. He wants to create 250 million jobs by 2024. He wants to attract more foreign investment, kickstart the manufacturing sector, also construct a high-speed railway system, and wants to create around 100 new cities. So this is really, it's appealing. It's appealing to those Indians who have had to live through recession-like atmosphere with a very high inflation, consumer price index, and dwindling growth.
Well,
So
this sounds like a
that's-
great success for India. I mean, it's a new departure in many ways. It's the right statement going forward. It's everyone coming together, or at least the majority vote coming together to try to build a better economy. It sounds like this was a groundbreaking, a groundbreaking kind of election that takes India into a new place, and it's a better place. What do you think?
Yes, everybody's very optimistic in India. It's much more stable. As soon as Modi was elected, the market shot up, and the business is backing him. Now, internationally, both Modi and his party are seen as Hindu nationalists. And there's one thing I would like to mention, especially if there are policymakers in the US listening. Yes, Modi did get embroiled in this controversy of the Gujarat riots, but he's done a lot of good for the people. I mean, the Gujarat riots happened, and it's not that he had gone out and really pursued Muslims or any other religious groups by himself. I mean, they were not pursued by him. He was the chief minister of the state, and it was a little delay.
What was the nature of the controversy, Gauri?
Okay, so sorry about that. The Gujarat riots were riots in 2002 when mobs had killed around 1,000 people, mostly Muslims. So it was a Hindu-Muslim riot. So this came in the aftermath of a train carrying Hindu pilgrims was torched. So this is the main issue. And following the 2002 riots, most Western countries, and especially the US, put a visa ban on travel ban on Modi. Now, the Indian Supreme Court appointed a special investigation team, and it cleared Modi of complicity in these riots. But yet, the visa ban continued, and just up to very recent, all these European and the US government have invited Modi to visit. Now, also the point I want to make about the BJP, there is too much reservation internationally about the BJP, but the BJP is not out to get Muslims or any other communities. Now, if you see statistically, India, despite being a country of vast diversities with so many religious communities living, Most of the communal riots have happened under the Congress government or in states led by Congress or its allies. And the ratio is 15:1. There was one incident under the BJP, and any government will not be tolerated, even by the Hindus, if they're out to get any other community. What we do want is growth, and that's what Modi and his party represent for the moment.
I know you didn't have a chance to vote because you got there too late for your district, but would you have voted for Mr. Modi?
Yes, I would. There's another party, I don't know if many people know about it. It's called the Aam Aadmi Party, or the Common Man's Party, which was very promising, extremely promising, and I did really support them as well. And they were really behind transparency issues. They really appealed to the youth in particular, and they did form a minority government in the state of Delhi, New Delhi, for a brief period, but still they got elected. And they're a new party, they're just 1 year old. And they got elected. Now, I would have voted for them mainly, but the issue was that they came across as an anti-establishment party. So, like me, most people voted for BJP just to have a secure government.
Okay, we're going to take one more break, Guari. When we come back, I'd like to talk a little more about how the West will look at this, where India will fit, and what will happen in terms of the electorate going forward to the next election. How will that process work? What's under the hood? For the next election when all this gets tested again. That's Guari Khandekar. She is with FRIDE, FRIDE, which is a think tank in Brussels. She covered the Indian elections over the past couple months, and we're talking about the upshot of those elections here on ThinkTech Global. I'm Jay Fidell. We'll be right back. I'm Jay Fidell. That's Sharon Moriwaki of the Hawaii Energy Policy Forum. And every Wednesday we have Hawaii, the State of Clean Energy. We've been doing it for some time now, and we have some fantastic guests on there, unbelievable guests who give us insight into what is going on in a very complex, sometimes very confusing, sometimes very disappointing area of progress in the state. So we love doing this. We love meeting them. We love talking to them. We love having their ideas out on the table. So maybe, just maybe, we can all make some sense of what's going on. Sharon, what do you think?
I think that's absolutely correct. We enjoy ourselves meeting with all these people and hearing about the energy and the state of clean energy, and hopefully we advance clean energy for the state. So it's terrific. Join us.
Okay, it's every Wednesday. Okay, Wednesday is Energy Day. Every Wednesday, 4 to 5 p.m. Hawaii, the State of Clean Energy, here on ThinkTech Hawaii. We'll see you. Okay, we're back. We're live. We're ThinkTech Global, talking about the upshot of the Indian elections just recently completed with Guari Khandekar, who joins us by Skype audio from Brussels, which is the home base of her think tank called FRIDE in Brussels. Anyway, Guari, so, what is the implication for, diplomatic relationships and ties? I mean, is the baggage that Mr. Modi, what he carried before out of those riots back in 2002, is that going to be a problem for him in terms of dealing with the West on a diplomatic level? Or will this just all work out swell? Where is India now? Where is it going to go under this administration in terms of being a world power?
Okay, so now the baggage for Modi is basically his visa ban from most Western countries, and that is really shaping his foreign policy. Now, the vectors of Modi's foreign policy are slowly unraveling, and they point towards a real shift for India from being a near pacifist power to an orthodox regional power, and from a great nation with tremendous soft power to a great power. Now, I do strongly believe that Modi has every intention of putting India at the center stage of global politics and economics. Now, what the very first signs of Modi's foreign policy were that he unprecedentedly invited all South Asian leaders to attend his swearing-in ceremony. And this was a very shrewd move to reassure India's neighborhood and to consolidate India's position in its own neighborhood, especially with growing Chinese presence. So this was one aspect to note. During that event, bilateral talks were also held with the Pakistani Prime Minister, Nawaz Sharif. Now, his first foreign trip was also to Bhutan, which is India's tiny neighbor to the north, and has been mainly an Indian protectorate state for the past 50, 60 years. There is a reinforcement of India's Look East policy. So India will very much underscore relations with Japan, but also China. Now, when the West ostracized Modi, Japan received him with open arms. Modi is very good friends with Prime Minister Abe, and what I learned recently from Japanese colleagues at the Shangri-La Dialogue in particular is that Prime Minister Abe follows only 3 people on Twitter, of which one is Modi.
That's saying something.
It is something enormous. Probably the other is President Obama, but Modi is there in the 3, you know. So Japan is going to be very high on the agenda. Japan is also building the Mumbai-Delhi industrial corridor, which is really massive in terms of scale, economic scale. His first foreign trip was everybody thought it would be to Japan, but he will be traveling to Japan later. Now, China is very eager to strengthen relations with India, and the Chinese leadership has been really reaching out to him. India did receive the Chinese foreign minister within 1 month in government, in power.
That's good.
So yes, relations with China would also be center stage because China is becoming India's largest trading partner. Next, his third trip is going to be to Brasilia for the BRICS summit. The BRICS are the grouping of Brazil, Russia, India, China,
Yes.
and South Africa.
Yes.
And this will really reinforce India's alignment towards the grouping and more South-South cooperation. So this is what to watch for multilateral issues. Now, he did accept the invitation by President Barack Obama, which is scheduled for September, by the way. And this was after rejecting the advice of many in India's strategic community who brought up the previous American visa ban. But it's also really about to feed his own ego that, yes, you know, you banned me from coming to your country, now I come directly to the White House.
Well, you know, it sounds like he's really he's got an international consciousness, and that can only be a good thing for India.
It is. Unfortunately for the European Union, though, there's not been any mention. And the EU, which is currently negotiating a major free trade agreement with India, is remaining in the loop, but there's been no mention yet.
Well, that gives us a good issue to follow up with you on in a few weeks when we'll call you again, Guari. And we'll ask you how it's going in India and how the connection is going between India and the EU, and any other news that may cross your desk. We are delighted to have this contact with you, to be able to call you and have these discussions. It's lovely, and we greatly appreciate your availability.
Jay, I appreciate it, and it's my pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, talk soon. That's Guari Khandekar. She's with FRIDE, which is a think tank in Brussels. She joins us by Skype audio here on ThinkTech Global, talking about the upshot of the elections in India. Thank you so much, Guari. Aloha.